It's very difficult these days to come up with something genuinely unique in gaming, but I feel like Derpy Conga has done just that. It's a physics-based puzzle platformer that reminds me heavily of a mid to late era PS2 style platformer game. And by that I don't just mean like the aesthetic, which I think it does through rose-tinted glasses, but it's where a game had what feels like a not absolute bare minimum budget to try something new and experimental and like twist it around in different ways and get a lot of mileage out of a few small but interesting game mechanics. In Derpy Conga, you play not just as one alien, but a selection of them, and they're all trying to escape from a meteor smashing into their planet and killing them all. They get inside a spaceship, and then each level starts with the spaceship conking out and then crashing down into whatever island they were just flying over, which becomes your level. The idea is that you need to then collect as many of the aliens off the island as possible and reach the exit to phone the mechanic and get onto the next level, where the same thing happens again and again. The trick here is that the aliens aren't collectibles, they join you on your adventure and you have to control them all. Admittedly, in a giant conga line. And here's where the uniqueness comes in. So you'll start off every level with just the one alien, but as you kind of reach other ones, you'll really cutely extend your arm as if to be like, hello, come play. And then you'll kind of hold hands. And then you'll keep doing this more and more and more. And as levels get trickier and trickier to traverse and work out how you need to get to like the next part of it, controlling one alien, easy peasy. 12 in a giant line, oh dear, might be a problem. And so you really have to think about how you can ham-fist your way in a derpy style through all of the different trials and tribulations that the game throws at you. Now, there's 4 different types of aliens that you can control, but you only directly control one of them. And this is kind of like the first layer of strategy, which didn't dawn on me until I reached halfway through the game that I wasn't thinking in this way. So just a tip for everyone, consider how you structure your conga line. I don't know why this didn't occur to me early on in the game, but there we go. You have these orange aliens with antennas on, and those are the ones that you directly control. So what you need to do is just make sure you spread them out across your conga line so that it gives you more options, because you can flick between them all at a click of a button and decide which one you want to directly control, which pushes the rest of the conga line forward or backwards in those directions. You've then got these purple ones that are kind of just filler aliens. But for example, the ones with the alien with like a helmet on or a mask on can be set on fire, which sounds quite morbid now that I've said it. But their levels revolve around sometimes having flint walls that you need to scrape them across to set them on fire. So you don't want them in the middle of your conga line because it makes it really difficult to try and get them to a place where they can set themselves on fire. So leave one at the end and start filling out the conga line lopsided on the other side. All of these different things you can take into account to make your gameplay easier or harder for you, either knowingly or unknowingly, as it was with me. Then it comes across to the actual puzzles themselves, and they largely revolve around traversal or the circle mechanic, and I'll explain that in a second. You can have 2 formations for your conga. You can press right trigger on your controller so that they go into a rigid straight line, and that's quite handy for getting through narrow corridors or small platforms or like tight bridges, all of that kind of stuff, very helpful. When you get 7 or more aliens together in a conga line, you can press left trigger and then they form a circle. And anything inside that circle usually then becomes manoeuvrable. So if you've got platforms, you can pick them up and then move them across because they're all holding it together in a giant circle like friends would. But also, like sometimes the platforms are movable. So they're on like the back of a crab. So when you get in a circle, it's as if you've subdued the crab. So then that means that the platform becomes movable and the crab stays asleep for like 20 seconds before it wakes up and starts roaming off. So you'll need to kind of box it in with other things so that it can't get anywhere. But all of these circle things allow that. And what they do throughout Derpy Conga is keep finding new ways of how this circle mechanic can manipulate the world around you. So there's a section where it becomes like a lasso so that you can pull back on these giant plants and it becomes a slingshot that fires you forward like a cannon. There's another section where you have these giant boulders inside sand pits and they're tied to icons on doors, and so you have to roll the ball around, drawing out a bit like an Etch-a-Sketch the icons in the sand. And it was just impressive the different ways how Derpy Conga for each world tries new and interesting ways for this circle mechanic to manipulate things for puzzles. And that's genuinely what kept the gameplay fresh. Yes, you'd get different types of aliens dropped in with each world that you went to, but after you'd kind of found their initial mechanics, you were still left with this whole platforming traversal issue, which they kept on expanding on to keep things interesting. The game takes it took me 4 hours to complete. I've seen a developer say between 3 and 5, depending on how 100%y you want it to be. I did run into a few brick walls though, and this was where some of my frustrations with Derpy Conga came in. I mentioned earlier on that there was a section around boulders in sands. I had some real issues with it accepting my drawings. I could see that I'd drawn the icon, but it seemed like it wanted you to be drawn to draw these icons in a very specific, like step-by-step process, and I'd gone about it a different way and it just wasn't registering it. So I became stuck for a while going, well, I've just done it. What else do you want me to do? Which was slightly frustrating. I did also run into some issues where sometimes with my aliens, the derpiness was a bit too much. And by that, I mean that they would get stuck in walls, or the camera would end up stuck inside bits of the environment. And then I'd have to kind of pause and unpause for it to become responsive and come back out again. So there was just a few issues and bugs around that. Nothing that broke the game, but things that I would sometimes have to pause and unpause, and it would kind of reset its brain and get going again. The other thing that I found slightly confusing and slightly frustrating is that when your aliens join the conga line, they do so in a pattern. So one faces towards you, one away, towards you, away. And they do it like that across the whole conga. And so when you're switching between the aliens that you can control, the camera is going nuts, going backwards and forth, backwards and forth, backwards and forth. And then depending on which one you then take control of, the conga line kind of derps itself out, is the best way to say it. And quite often, if you're switching stuff up in a really tight situation, my conga line would just walk off the edge of a cliff. And I thought, well, I've got no way of controlling any of that because of the stupid way how everything's towards and away from you. The camera is causing confusion, and then the characters are trying to reassemble themselves in an odd way. And so, yeah, that happened repeatedly throughout the entire game, and it never really went away, and that annoyed me. The weird thing I would say about this, though, is that the game gets better the more you play it. And I don't know if it's just because the opening world feels extra derpy, but it's as if once they've gotten away from the concept of, ha ha ha, it's a conga line, oh look, crazy, and it gets more puzzle orientated, the game actually gets less derpy and more awkward to control. And the things get more and more finessed. And maybe I need to go back and play the original sections of these games again just to make sure that that's definitely a case. But it's a game that got better with age as I went through it rather than got worse as things got more complicated. And I found myself enjoying it much more towards the end of the game than I did in the beginning. The other things that were worthwhile mentioning is that the music is dynamic. As you get more aliens, the conga line gets longer, the music gets layered more heavy and heavy. So that was quite cute and interesting. And the other thing is it's available to play in co-op. Now, God knows how this would actually play in co-op. I'd imagine you just want to rip each other's hair out, to be fair, because if you're not all doing things together and jumping together and coordinated, I could see this being a mess. Personally, I played this through in single player. I still had a blast. I'd recommend it with single player, to be honest, because that's the only experience that I know of. So that's what my score is judged on. So yeah, if you've had some experience with this in co-op, pop down a comment down below because I'd genuinely be interested. Did you kill each other? That's it, Derpy Conga. I'm so delighted that an interesting and unique game is coming out in 2022, giving me proper vintage, cute and simplistic vibes. These are the types of games that I love and adore, have done since I was a kid, and will continue to do so. Simpler times, simple magic, a good laugh. Derpy Conga, out now. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network. a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/HigherPlaneNetwork. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.